live now and
How exciting.
live.
Awesome. We are live. And T, you'll give us the go ahead when we're ready
I'll
to
give
go.
you, yeah. So there's a couple of people. People are joining in quite quickly, which is cool. I think we can give it 30 seconds because people are joining quite early, and then we can get started.
Sounds good. Do we want to keep talking about Taryn's music taste?
Good music never
while we're
dies.
waiting? Heavy
Yeah.
I think
techno?
Listen, I'm a Gen Xer, so it's English 80s music and dance music. So I'm a techno kind of rave person. So
Yeah. You'd love, there's a festival over here called Rewind Festival, and all it is 80s music. So you get all of the artists turn up and everyone gets dressed up. It's quite an
it's
experience.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some
So
artists that-
weird that that's 40 years ago, right? The 80s music 40 years ago?
and some of those guys are still touring. I think the English Beat is coming to the Bay Area. So
Gosh.
Yeah.
True.
Okay.
So true.
Look at Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can get started. So I'm going to go off screen and I'm going to leave you guys to it.
Cool.
Thank you,
very
Taryn.
much. Cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming today to 2112's Growth Forum, where we explore the ideas, channels, and strategies that help businesses drive better growth. Today, we're focusing on LinkedIn. It's a platform that most people in B2B know they should probably be using, but there's still a lot of uncertainty around how to use it well. To demystify it for you, we've got 3 brilliant subject matter experts. We have Taryn, Josh, and Judy. Welcome, guys. So
Hello.
So the aim of today is to make this as practical as possible for you guys. We're here to understand what actually works, how LinkedIn can be used to build trust, create demand, and generate pipeline for your businesses. Before we get to intros, we're going to start with a quick poll. So Tristan, I should say, I don't want to get confused, Taryn, I apologize. Tristan's going to throw up a quick question for you guys to answer so we can get a grasp on where you guys are up to with your LinkedIn strategies right now. So if I could hand over to you guys just for a quick intro to yourselves. So Taryn, can we start with you, please?
Yeah. So, sorry, clearing the throat. So, I'm a strategic operator and marketing leader for over 20 years. So, I've been scaling marketing programs and marketing campaigns at companies like AstraZeneca, JP Morgan Chase, Roku. Currently, I'm working at the intersection of GTM and brand marketing. So, helping companies kind of start out where they're in the Series A or Series B area, and just really enjoying producing a ton of content and helping people deliver content, especially on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Judy.
Yes. Hi. I'm Judy Hayes, and I'm a New York City-based LinkedIn strategist. And I work with senior executives in founder-led firms who basically have strong reputations, but they're not visible to the buyers that need to see them. And they haven't claimed their niche or positioned their expertise specifically on LinkedIn. That's the gap I close. I help them become visible experts.
Amazing. And I think we've lost Josh temporarily, but as by way of intro for Josh, he is a thought leadership expert. He's worked in big business. He helped startups. Here he is. He can do a better job of explaining who he is than I can. Josh, you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, we can hear you. Would you like to, throw you in at the deep end now you're back on. Would you like to do a quick intro to yourself?
I'd love to. Yeah, apologies. My internet, I think, dropped. Typical. I've been on calls all day and suddenly it doesn't like me. So, yeah, my name's Josh. I have a background in psychology, actually. I spent 10 years in the world of engagement, culture, leadership, working with enterprise businesses on how do we create trust with our employees, with our community, and in the market. And now run an agency that does a very similar thing for business owners. So, yeah, lovely to be here.
Amazing. Thanks so much, guys. So poll answers are in, and the majority of people are saying that LinkedIn is a core growth channel for their business. So no pressure, guys. We've got some good experts in the audience today, but also a decent percentage are saying they're not using it effectively enough. So this is a good place to be wherever you are at in your journey. The first question I want to throw to you guys, and it's probably the biggest one, right? Because we can just shut our laptops if the answer's no, is LinkedIn still a commercially viable, right? Does it drive commercial growth, or is it just vanity metrics? I'm going to throw that out there. Who would like to put their hand up and walk into that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's still hands up, so still commercially viable. I mean, there's a whole bunch of alternatives coming, but LinkedIn is still the singular place, right, where most people go, in various levels of activity. So there's more specialty platforms, but I think LinkedIn's still very relevant and have been making changes to be maybe a little bit more relevant.
For sure.
Yeah, I would add to that and say that LinkedIn has grown up. It started as a resume job search board, and then it got into the lead generation phase, and then it became a creator platform. And I think that now it's kind of had a reckoning. And it's concerning that the use of AI is filtering certain things on LinkedIn, but I still think it's a viable platform, mainly because of the, 1.2 billion members on the platform. And that's a lot of people. So, LinkedIn can be part of the toolbox that you use for your business development and relationship building.
For sure. And Josh, is that what you're seeing across your client base?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think in terms of commercial ROI, I think you could probably split it into two different buckets. Are you booking great conversations, real valuable commercial conversations through the platform in some way? And there's methodologies that you can use to track that to see if they're coming through LinkedIn. I think also have a gauge on what your sales conversations are like when you're super active on LinkedIn as a platform. If the conversations are slightly warmer, they have some prior context to the business or your story, I think that's a really good indication to say that, it is a commercial platform and you can use it effectively to grow pipeline in the business.
Yeah, for sure. So key takeaway is, that 1.2 billion user base, your ideal clients are probably on LinkedIn in some shape or form. Let's start from the beginning, because the audience is split between core growth channel and people who are kind of brand awareness or not using it effectively yet. Where should people start? If we go back to basics, what is the starting point? If someone came to you today and said, look, I'm not doing much on LinkedIn, what would you recommend? What would your advice be? Judy, sorry, Josh, you go.
Sorry, I got too excited there. I jumped straight in.
No, that's my fault completely.
Yeah, it's just the English style just throwing in. Apologies. So, yeah, I think the starting point that I'd always go with is talk about your experiences, your story, and your real background and credibility, because I think that is a unique differentiator that everyone on the call will have. That, you could be on a call with a bunch of different consultants or a bunch of different service providers, but not everyone has the same story and credibility that you bring. So I think if you can find a way to leverage your real experience and turn it into assets and content that people can relate to, that's always going to be a good starting point because it's true to you.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. And Judy, sorry, Taryn. Guys, should I just, I'll just mute. I'll just mute and put the questions in the chat because I'm ruining this.
Go ahead. Like,
got a rough crowd here.
I'm jumping in, but Judy, please, if you started, I don't want to step on you. So
no. I know Henry's been calling on me. I'm like, no.
I mean, I would just add thought leadership. That was it, right? Like defining, understand what you do, what your value prop is. Like nobody wants to, so as you're developing content in your profile, they want a spicy hot take. They want your perspective on things, right? So like, I think where the value lies is within our lived experiences, right? It's not like, hey, I did this and I sent this email campaign, blah, blah, blah. I heard my, it's got to be very unique, right? It's got to have that kind of thought leadership take. And that's not saying what something is. It's saying what your experience with something is and what you learn from that, right? So like, I feel like there's a lot of people who just go out and kind of push stuff out, like almost like a news aggregator, right? Like you just put something randomly, zero engagement. When you talk about something and share that perspective, that's the sweet spot, I kind of feel. Judy, over to you.
Yeah, what I would say is, and I'll go real fundamental in terms of marketing 101, but who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach? And have clarity on that, because when I'm working with people, sometimes it's, well, I want to reach this and this and this. And it's like, no, you really need to be laser focused. And then it's always the profile, and you can't post your way to authority. It's really that the profile has to demonstrate, you have to be found. You have to, what is the know, like, and trust, and you have to build that credibility. But I think the part of it is that when you have clarity in who you want to reach, and you also have an outcome that you provide to that audience, when there's that relevance, that's when it all comes together. So without starting with those fundamental questions, you're going to be kind of, throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks.
For sure. And it's always interesting how few people put in the work on the foundations, right? Who are you trying to target? What are they interested in? And I mean, in terms of, there was talk there about your stories, your personal stories, because that is a differentiator. All of us are unique. How do you get that out of a client when you're working with them? Or how do you recommend, if someone's, just doing it solo, they can go through that process themselves? Are there any frameworks or tools they could use? Let's go.
Boy, now we're all talking. Well, when you talk about getting it out of them, here's a funny thing. If you've gone to an event and you meet somebody and they start talking about themselves, and I do this and I do that, and your eyes are rolling, you're just like, get me out of this conversation. It's not interesting. But if you start talking in a way that relates to the person that you're talking to, then you got their ear. And so it's a fine line between saying you're an expert without saying I'm great. It's saying it in a way that is speaking directly, again, to that ideal audience that you want to reach. So it's kind of flipping the script.
For sure. I love that analogy, because if you're in person, you wouldn't just do a sales page straight away. Or some people might try to, but it doesn't work, right? Guys,
Yeah.
anything you want to add to that in terms of your process of kind of
I mean, for me,
extracting these ideas?
So I meet with people, right? So like if I'm doing work and building somebody's organic LinkedIn up, or helping optimize their profile, or they're posting cadence, or their messaging or marketing comms, what I do is I talk to them, right? I find out what they were trying to accomplish. And to Judy's point, marketing 101, who are you targeting? What are you trying to accomplish? Like, what are your goals, right? What can you support? Because I mean, I think a lot of people are hesitant because of it feels like a part-time job when we have so many other things to do. So it's like keeping it simple and understanding like who they're targeting, what their objectives are, and like what their special value prop is, and the kind of like really working up a customized plan for them. So like for me, I write in the voice of probably 5 people on LinkedIn, and and I have that intro conversation talking about what is important to them, what their values and ethics are, right? Because in a way, you have to show a little bit of that. Henry, to the point last night when you commented on my post, people buy from people, right? And how do you
always?
Then is you need to, kind of show people who you are and how you think and what you're interested in and how you work and what your values and ethics are. And that's like what you have to unpack for me when I do that intro call to find out, like, can I help you, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Josh, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'll go super practical, which is for the person that is thinking, how do I get this and turn it into something which is valuable? Most people are talking to clients, customers, partners, all the time. We're on Zoom, on Google Meet, on Teams. So look at your conversations, look at your client calls, look at what they're asking, and think about, are there any themes across this which I can then turn into something valuable? Because we don't jump on client calls and suddenly pitch ideas. We have conversations as human beings. So if there's a way to transcribe those conversations, or at least theme it, then start to look at what we can create content around, which is real, which is based off of real client calls, and turn that into valuable pieces of content that you can distribute, because you know that it's already coming from your potential customer.
Yeah, I love that. It's a lot
Can
easier.
I add one thing to that? Can I add one thing? One thing I think that's really important is to set expectations. Okay, what's the expectation for LinkedIn? What is LinkedIn supposed to do? It should not be where you are selling. It should really be where you are developing that relationship. Building on what Taryn said is people do business with people, right? And so if you're using LinkedIn to kind of, you know, how would I say, prime that relationship. The objective for me is to get the conversation offline, get it on a Zoom call, get it in a meeting, get it beyond LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is one part of that process. But I think a lot of people work too hard on LinkedIn to try to sell, and it's off-putting. So it's more about relationship building at the core of it.
Yeah, for sure. I
Agree.
think, Taryn, you put up a really interesting post this morning or last night, which was around events and how, effectively events give you an excuse, right, to communicate with your audience. And actually, that's what you're trying to do, right? LinkedIn can be a platform to move people off into your newsletter, which is a bit of a warmer touch point, or into an event, which again, getting that face to face, which is an even warmer touch point still. So
That's
I
right.
love that. I love that advice. And that kind of brings in having joining the dots between your strategy, right? Things don't work in a silo, having other things on the go. Tristan, I believe we have our second poll, which should be, how often does our audience personally post to LinkedIn? So I'll leave you guys to answer that. But I think, guys, if I'm sat here as a founder listening to you talk, I'm thinking, this all sounds great. But my biggest problem is I don't have time to do this. Now, aside from hiring you guys, which would be lovely for them to do, what can they do to ensure, they're consistent with their process on LinkedIn? Because I'm guessing there's no point going hell for leather for a month and then letting it go fallow. What's the frameworks, the strategies they could use to manage their time?
I mean, I'm pretty simple with just, like when I have something to say, I'm going to say it, right? So, like, I posted all the intersections for me. So I share lived experience. I share like stupid things I did to myself over the weekend, right? Like just random things. I also like, if you've been paying attention to what I've been posting, it's like, that I'm doing 2 live events this week, right? And that's all it's been, like bam, bam, bam. So I've been hammering on that. I mean, I heard that in the new changes of LinkedIn, like, you want to recommend like just posting a couple times a week. I've got one client that's more ad hoc, right? That is like that whenever, like could be like 2 posts a week, could be 1, could be 0, skip a week. I've got one that's consistently like, 2 posts, like 1 to 2 posts a week. You got to find your right cadence. So it's like what you can support. And do you have something to add to the conversation? Do you have something valuable to say? I think when people start like getting into their heads about, oh my God, I got to do it every day, like it's like a task or a chore, right? It's really like go for value. So like, I'm not sorry, go for like quality, right? Like, so, do things that add to the conversation or support it, maybe spend time one day working on comments for people, because comments are a great way to raise visibility, on posts. Like, I mean, there's sometimes I get 20,000 impressions on 2 comments, right? Where you might not see that on your post. So like, mix it up a little bit, right? And show engagement. And the one thing that I'll add before I finish my soapbox, and I'm sorry, Josh and Judy, but it's engage with people's stuff. Like, this is not you hollering into a void, right? This is a social network. So be part of the conversation, jump on other people's posts, share insights, right? You never know what's going to come out of that, from that connection. And just like, be social when you're on social media, and LinkedIn is part of that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you
Yeah.
gave, sorry, Judy, I was just going to say,
Well, no,
Taryn
I
gave
was,
some advice last time about just don't overthink it. And I think that was really good advice. We've had, clients who are doing a big campaign and they've poured over one LinkedIn post. By the time it's gone for everyone, it fundamentally, the message has been lost and it is just quite boring, to be frank. And we probably missed the mark. So, I mean, Judy, do you have anything to add to that?
always. I think, Taryn, what you said about the commenting, a couple of things come up. And again, I'll bring back the analogy of if you're in an in-person event. generally you're going to go from conversation to conversation to conversation. And that's the commenting part. And I think the commenting, and I've seen it too, the reach on the commenting is much further than posts. And I think that if you're posting just to check a box, then you're just creating noise. Instead, if you want to actually have that work for you, look at posting an article or a newsletter, because that is indexed by Google. And so that has a life beyond. And I've had a couple of clients that have come to me and I say, how'd you find me? And they said through ChatGPT. Like, oh, that's interesting. So it's indexing that content. The other thing is look at some people, once you identify, like, here's the niche I want to fill, who are the people that have an audience? And like if you're at an event, get into that conversation, right? And find those people. The other thing that's underutilized is direct messaging, and that is something the algorithm doesn't touch. And so look at your network, who you've been connected to that you've lost touch with, and say, hey, like Henry, right? With Forbes Council and all our other things going on, it's like, let's touch base again, so doing that and activating that relationship. Again, it's not about virality or, having whatever people want to have these, how can I say it, inflated metrics. Metrics don't lead to business. It really doesn't. So that's just my piece.
That's a really interesting point about virality, because Josh, I know you've spoken a lot about this in the past because you've gone viral yourself, and it's really interesting to hear your viewpoint on that. Can you share that with everyone? Because I think people do come to you and go, we want to go viral,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really valid point that Judy touched on, because, virality, in my opinion, isn't a system, right? It's not a system that is consistent. It is something that has exploded, and that might be great for your ego and for the metrics, and you see lots of spikes, but it's difficult to play into that all the time. I personally my clients rather have a structure and a system which is consistent and is more manageable. Now, virality may help, but it also may really hinder your profile, because you can go viral for the wrong things. You always see these comments around, is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? Do I post videos of my dog, or do I post videos of my new client? And you can go viral for things that aren't going to support your profile and your network. So in my opinion, if virality is the game you're playing, I don't know if LinkedIn is the platform that's going to actually therefore support your business in the long run. But to Judy's point around direct messaging, for me, just be human. Just be a human that is curious and is interested. The amount of conversations that we drum up for ourselves as an agency, but for clients, through just being curious around what other people are doing, or there's an overlap in our workload or our background, and asking the right questions, because people are generally very conversational. It's a social network, and we need to lean into that.
For sure.
Yeah, what comes through is consistency. And I've heard it from Taryn and Josh and Henry, you've mentioned that. But whatever you do, just be consistent. Just if you're an occasional poster or whatever that is. But I love curiosity, Josh. That's inquisitive, and that opens the doors for, really having a conversation.
For sure. Because I think the LinkedIn DM is much maligned, right? We've all been hit with a connection request, and it's more and more. And then you get this essay being all about their service. Yeah, exactly. So, are you kind of suggesting that our audience should be weaving that into their strategy? How could they do that? Are they, how personalized does it need to be?
Uber personalized. You can't scale relationships. I mean, meaningful relationships, and people can see right through that, especially with things being scraped. I've gotten messages. It's like, really? Have you looked at my profile?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the worst. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think I had one the other day, which was around, do I want to reserve some sunbeds? And I was thinking, they clearly have no idea where this is coming from, and that does nothing but reduce their credibility rather than inflate it. So yeah, I mean, personalized, real, human. Let's be good people, right?
Well, what I do is, and this is like, I think the stat is about 73%, 72% of people that I work with or train have never downloaded their database, their LinkedIn database, and LinkedIn has made it harder. So what I do is I encourage people, download your LinkedIn network database, okay, the people you're connected to, and then look at it and see, because there's a 20% job turnover every year. people change jobs, whatever. Look at who you lost touch with, because to get a connection, again, it's a higher threshold. But to have a connection and then not engage with the connection, but do it in a genuine way. Don't do it with an agenda. Do it as a way that you really want to engage human to human.
Yeah, I think on the DM strategy, like I use that to grow community for my events. So like, don't drop into your profile and be like, okay, let me just throw my invite right in here. Like I actually take the time to look. So I'm searching in LinkedIn because I don't use Sales Navigator. I just like, I'm in LinkedIn. I'm finding people in the criteria that I'm looking for. And then second level connections, right? I look at your profile. I look at your featured post. I look at the last couple things you do. I get a kind of a vibe for what you're doing and what you're saying. And then I'm like, you know what? You'd be a great fit for this event. And then I like write a message, and this takes time. But I write a message like, oh my God, I love what you said about like generative AI systems and the lack of governance. We have a great event coming up, and I would love to invite you. Hope you can make it. Drop the link in there, right? And make it very personable. Like the worst thing, like for me, is it's like, like I always go back to Terminator. The AI stuff is so easy to determine, right? You know when it's been scraped. You know when it sounds like blah, 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 blah. Zero value. You have to make it personal. You have to connect to it, right? You just can't make it look all rubbery and synthetic, right? You've got to like put some effort into it. And that's part of the work.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. They want to scale, 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 and automate, automate, automate. And yeah, that just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, that's where the alchemy of like marketing comes in, right? Like it's like it's less like robotic machine and like more like just finding the right mix and making it like suit the purpose.
Yeah, I think the obsession right now is all about scale, isn't it? With AI,
yeah,
marketing's very, very metric driven in a way that doesn't always work, and AI's just exacerbated that, right? Taryn, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about providing value. A personalized invitation to an event is a lot of value, and you feel good about receiving that, right? And in terms of the job change, Judy, the comment around audience, what I want to know is, because people on this call may have changed jobs over the years. They may have set up a new business in a completely different sector. Their LinkedIn audience over those years has probably fundamentally changed, right?
yes.
Does your audience composition matter at all in terms of how far your content will go? Is it important?
Well, I think the network, when you look at first degree, second degree, third degree, people have asked me, should I remove people? Like in my case, I lived in Austin, Texas for a long time. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce. I connected with every member. Then I moved to New York City. Do I disconnect from all the Austin people? No. As a matter of fact, some of them have since relocated to New York, of all places. So I think that number one, it affects how you can grow your network based on your first, second, third degree. The other thing is go through and those people that you want to see in your feed, in your notifications feed, use that bell and unfollow people. Don't disconnect. Just unfollow people that you don't necessarily want to see their content. You can use the three dots to do that. But make sure that the people that you want to stay on top of what they're doing, that you have set that bell notification, and then you can, get alerts for that. And stay out of the home feed. Just stay in your notification lane. And this way you'll have a nice curated bit of content to engage with.
For sure. Because I'm seeing a lot more posts from people I don't know in my newsfeed right now, which, I'm not seeing content from people I want to see it from. The algorithm's quite good at sharing content that's interesting, but still, I think, Judy, last time you described the newsfeed as a crime scene, which I quite liked.
Yes.
I thought that was...
And my inbox is a crime scene too. Yes. Like crime scenes going on here.
Yeah,
yes.
For sure. I want to bring it back to the LLMs, because something really, really interesting, when we talk about LinkedIn working commercially, everyone's quite obsessed with AEO, SEO. Our next forum's actually on that topic. Some research has come out, it was Reddit as the most cited platform for the LLMs. It's now supposedly LinkedIn. And you mentioned also indexed by Google. Are you guys taking advantage of that for clients? Are you communicating to clients about that? Or is it just a nice byproduct of kind of what you're doing? Does anyone
No,
want to expand on that?
yeah, I monitor that. So like I was talking last night about GEO. I kind of stumbled into it, right? Last year and did it for myself. That was one of the things that I do when I'm like working with somebody or starting like a potential prospect into a lead is I look at where they are in Gemini, right? Like I look and see what they've got because I feel like for me, GEO and AEO has been that added bonus, right? And it's beyond LinkedIn. And I think Reddit actually is still number one from the last thing I saw, unless there's a new thing. But LinkedIn is like number two or number three. So like between those two platforms, it's a huge contribution to it. And like for me, it's not just LinkedIn, it's everywhere, right? So like I've got a link tree, I've got a website, I have been in media publications like I'm sure Josh and Judy have, right? All of that gets picked up into the feed. When you look me up in Gemini, it's like a 2-page synopsis of everything. And you know that I love to go to Aruba for a beach vacation, right? Like that's like what this system knows. But it also knows like it picks up LinkedIn. So when you're asked, I was just testing this the other day. So I go unlogged in and I think it's GPT and Claude. And I was looking about how I'm seen for speaking engagements, right? So it did a blank analysis of where I show up, like what I do, right? And give me recommendations on where I should go and speak. So like that's the result of GEL. Like it can be very informational. Like once it knows about you, it can start helping you pick those right lanes for you to maybe double down on, right? So like GEO excites me. So like I love it. Like I said, I fell into it last year and really have been just embracing it.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think you touched on an interesting point, Taryn, about the different touch points because we've started to track some of the acquisitions that come through AI now. So I can see that we're getting hits now coming through Claude, ChatGPT, things like that. And we don't even overly index on that. We don't overly focus on that as a channel, but it's because of the way that we distribute ourselves across multiple arenas and multiple platforms with our content that it's picking these up and it's filtering it through. And I think that is where we need to be continuing to head. It's great that you're already heavily invested in that because I think that is the future and we need to really start investing in that. And it's an exciting space, as you said.
I love it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Henry.
No, Judy, you go. Be far more interesting.
A couple of things I was going to say was with LinkedIn, it's always held a very high MOZ score. I think it's in the high 90s, which stands for credibility. So I think that has to do with why the LLMs are pulling in LinkedIn content because it is considered because your actual profile is connected to what you're saying as opposed to other platforms where you can have avatars. The other thing that's interesting is, and I think it's an underused aspect of LinkedIn is that if you're a solopreneur, if you have a small company, you should have a company page on LinkedIn. And so many people don't, and that's a missed opportunity. So Taryn, as you were saying, when you're doing a sort of a pull on where am I showing up, the more pieces that you have in that puzzle for visibility, the more you're going to show up. And the third thing I'll add to that is with my clients, we have changed our strategy in terms of blog content. Now we are adding FAQs. And because these are the things when the even if you do a Google search, it's giving you one key result, which is the AI aggregation. Okay, so if you are optimize your H1 tags on your blog posts and your key takeaway and your FAQs, you are then signaling to the LLM or whatever it is you're searching for, this content is relevant. So I think if you start to employ that strategy and think, in the big picture, with utilizing LinkedIn, utilizing what the platforms want to deliver to you, I think you'll show up more and you'll see the impact of that.
So basically the FAQs are a really good way to get into the answer engine optimization. Like being able to
have AI write it.
Yeah, and have that question and then like it shows up as that answer, right? With the FAQ.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I love that approach. Yeah.
They also weirdly love comparison tables, which I find amazing. So you're actually seeing people list their competitors on their websites. Got a few builds at the moment where we're suggesting, add in the comparison table. It needs to be neutral. It needs to be honest, but the LLMs only read compartmentalized pieces of a web page, whereas Google would read the whole. But as we move towards what they're calling zero-click marketing, where people don't visit your websites, I think looking at platforms like LinkedIn and how you take advantage is just becoming more crucial, right? I also want to just push you guys on, I know it was a lovely answer in terms of how often you should post and what, we mentioned newsletters, we mentioned LinkedIn articles. I'm going to be really mean here, but say someone came to you and they said, look, I want you to help me with my GEO. I want you to drive my personal brand. I want you to turn it into a pipeline generating machine. What are you recommending to them? What exact framework are you suggesting in terms of newsletters, articles, posts, DMs? What does that look like? It's an easy one to answer.
Well, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll jump in.
Of course.
So like for me, when I'm meeting with people, and I'm part of a couple different communities. So like I've got a community of 15,000 people that I kind of support to help, like, and just add value to it. But when I talk to folks from there, I talk about they have the PR hype machine, right? So like what I do is I help people kind of connect that. I'm like, okay, you should really look for like PR opportunities that showcase what you know and your lived experience. I use sites like Quoted to find media opportunities for myself and for others. And there are sites like that in various country regions. Like I did a strategy for an Australian doctor who wanted to get more into the speaking thing and find out that there are Quoted like versions in Australia, right, that she could use to kind of get up there and get those media appearances. So for me, it's kind of like, it's that, how to describe it with GEO is, think of it as your home base, your home entity is your website, right? So you've got to have the structured code. It's got to be machine readable, for you need a schema, right? For your site. So like the machines can pick it up and index it. But you also need a digital neighborhood. And that's the key component, right? You got to have a great website, a great LinkedIn presence, but if you're nowhere else, the digital neighborhood is very small, right? So like the whole purpose of this is to build the biggest neighborhood you can that is within your brand, within your ICP, within your messaging, within your experience, right? And own that space. Like I feel sometimes like I am just everywhere, but that everywhere moment generates results for me in the LLMs.
I love that, Taryn. I think to add on that is when you do that and you own that space, you are a category of one, which is really where that visible expertise comes in, and it's, but it goes back to the clarity. Have clarity in who you're trying to reach, and not like groups of people, but very specific. So I'm just talking to you. Whatever I say, I'm talking to you, and you're identifying with that if you are that ICP. The other thing that I would say is guesting on podcasts, guesting on webinars like this, also publishing a book. I work with a lot of clients that, they have their own IP, their framework or whatever it is. Publishing a book is one of the most under leveraged tools out there, and it's not hard to do. I've done it both ways, with a publisher and self-publishing. And the goal of my book is to give it away. I don't care if it sells. It opens doors, it sets me apart from competition, and it's something I can gift clients and prospects. And so, thinking, and then a podcast, if you're not ready to launch your own, then look at, as Taryn said, to look at where are those people where I can guest on their podcast, because then you're leveraging audience, you're adding value. And if you look at that, then you start to fill in those boxes. So when somebody is searching for an expertise that you offer, guess what shows up? You're showing up.
I can also just put myself in the mind of someone on this call thinking, I have to be everywhere, I have to do all of these things, I do all of this at the same time. I think you could be quite strategic and smart about repurposing things and redistributing things in the right way. So it's not that everything has to be brand new and fresh and you have to post 100 times across all these platforms. But actually, if you have a couple of key conversations with yourself, virtual conversations, you document your thoughts, turn that into pieces of content, take a high performing piece of content, turn it into a newsletter, turn that newsletter into a blog post. So I think there's a way for you to streamline and become more efficient about what you create. But I think best case scenario, let's ripple your brand across all these different mediums, where possible, within the realms of what's reality for yourself.
I gave
I
that
love
same
that.
advice to a client. Yeah, because they were like, I don't have the bandwidth to do the content. I'm like, you don't have to do new stuff, right? Repurpose what you have. You produce content. Like for me, I do the same thing and I take my own advice and and it's basically what you're saying, right? It's like you write those pieces and then find those ways to be able to elevate that, right? To share that. Like, can I just mention one thing? So, like, with that quoted piece, so it's QWOTED. I landed my first podcast. So I've been on tons of like podcasts before, but I landed my first media appearance through quoted, right? So, like, you have to really work on your pitch. You have to find the right opportunities. But like, I landed something last night that came from a platform that I just started using, right? So, like, you don't have to do this exhaustive search. Just find one or two things and just put some effort into it.
100%.
I
Love
think
that.
to add on what Josh was saying, I think you said it earlier, is take your call transcripts, or maybe you said it,
Yeah.
I'm going to paraphrase it, but analyze those and look at the questions being asked, and does the same question come up? And that's why I think video content is really a good pillar, you know, not necessarily a theme, but using that, because from that you can also get the audio, you can get the text, you can get the sound bites, you can create, the assets that revolve around that. But I think it's staying in your lane helps. I mean, yes, you can talk about other things. I had something, I put my daughter turned 30. And so I posted something about that, but I put in the angle because again, on LinkedIn, it's like, well, is that relevant? Yeah, because I said, you know what, I got hired, no experience, never done this before, but I got the job, and then here's the end result so far. So it's like kind of make it relatable to people. It's like try to reveal a little bit of yourself as a person, but also then underscore what I don't know if I like to say the word outcome. It's not so much what I can do for you, but it's what it will result in. So if you can capsulize that in as many ways as possible, it's a powerful message.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned video. Are there certain content formats you're seeing working better right now? What should people be focusing on?
In my view is, if you go back to what we're using LinkedIn for, what's the purpose of it? To build network, to build relationship, to build credibility. I think, video is always a great way to do that. People connect with your voice, your face, your background. It starts
Yeah.
good conversation. Before we jumped on the call, we were talking about, am I in a sauna because my background looks like this? But it adds another layer of relatability to who you are. And I think, yeah, video is a great format. Ultimately, everything can work, right? Everything can work on LinkedIn. It's a social platform. So it depends on what the outcome is. But if we can create the foundation of where video is accessible for you as a leader, and we can create that for you, then great, because we can repurpose that with transcripts, with text posts, with infographics, etc.
One other thing to add is in terms of repetition or having that theme, I think that's a positive because it's like a billboard. It's like you keep seeing something and then at some point it sets in. And then when you have to take an action, oh, yeah, I remember that. It's not necessarily verbatim saying it the same way, but it's like recasting it. And it's like my whole thing has been download your database, people, please. It's your network, or what do you do with that? And that's been like a cornerstone message. And I say it 50 different ways, but the bottom line is people are still not doing it. So obviously I need to break through that problem. But I think, using another thing that's not used a lot, and I love this, is in the mobile app, you can do a audio note, a voice note, I think they call it. Now, I had something happen where I connected with somebody and then we messaged back and forth and then I sent him a voice note and he asked me if that was AI generated. And I just thought, well, first of all, you can't do that in the LinkedIn platform yet that I know of. But it just made me think that people are so fatigued about, is this really you or is this like, a faux you or, whatever, a digital copy of you. But I think using different tactics like that, not overusing them, but when they're relevant, I think they help you break through.
For sure. For sure. That's awesome. Guys, is there anything you feel our audience should know that I've missed? Is there one top tip right now that you see is working particularly well? Or is it an amalgamation of everything we've spoken about?
I would say, like, for me, I'm not going to give a top tip, like, and something like, hey, go do this. What I will tell you is, like, stop letting LLMs generate all your content. Like that, with the changes in LinkedIn, they will deprioritize that, right? So, like, we've seen the credential marks on the images, right? Like, you put effort into writing really good content. Stop relying on the crutch of AI and LLMs. Like, don't, if you're going to comment on somebody, be legitimate. Don't just like ask ChatGPT what your take is on this, right? And pump it in there. Like, people want to see you, they want your lived experience. Don't shortcut it. I mean, I use AI every day, but it doesn't generate the bulk of my stuff, right? Like, so just be very cautious when you're doing that and just understand how the platform works, right? So, like, that stuff will be deprioritized. Video that doesn't have a punchy first 15 seconds gets deprioritized. Like, are starting to see content based on what their preferences are. That is the recommendation LLM working. So, like, you have to play into that.
I love that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
also add, take a look at your headline. Because I think I mentioned this in our prep for this call. I think it shows up like in 10 or 12 places. And that is really like people are making snap judgments on seeing the headline and your profile photo. Does it spark curiosity on what Josh is saying? I'm curious about this person. Let me see what they do. Now I'm going to look at their profile. Your about section should really be written too, not about you. It's not about you. It's about what you represent to your ideal audience, and you speak to them directly. So it's those sections, and I would say that really go into your profile, put in everything. And by the way, on the LLMs, whoa, is that a train that went by or something? On the LLMs, I'm going through the Claude Anthropic Academy right now. I recommend that for everybody, but I've added them to my LinkedIn profile because I'm getting well versed and not just using it as a crutch, but using it as a way to ideate and a way to analyze, and become a better steward of those tools.
Yeah. Amazing. Josh, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll all of the above, and I'll close it with just invest the time to be active and be social. This is not going to be something which changes overnight. It is something that you have to invest in, and it does take the work, as the guy said earlier. So be prepared to invest the time and work within what is capable within your your diary. But it does work, and it does happen. It does open some really exciting doors. We're all here today, right? Because we're connected on all different parts of the world. But it's worth doing if you can invest that time.
Yeah, amazing. A very global call. Now, I want to open it up to questions for our final 10 minutes, if that's okay with you guys. But before we move into that, I wanted to quickly offer all attendees a little gift, which is relevant to today's discussion. So at 2112, we're currently beta testing Noteworthy. It's our new AI video interview tool. So it links to a lot of what the guys have spoken about today. The idea is simple. Instead of staring at a blank page, Noteworthy interviews you on camera, pulls out the good stuff, and turns one short conversation into LinkedIn posts, video clips, blogs, newsletters, and more. It also researches what's happening in your world using social listening, pulling news via API. So the questions are actually relevant to your expertise, your story, and your market. So feel free to scan the code, join the beta. It's free to do so. We're also opening up a founding community where we'll have more content like this coming at you. And now I want to swing it over to some questions for the guys, because I imagine that has opened up a lot of questions from people. So we'll see what comes through over the next minute or so. But while people are putting their questions in, I just want to say a massive thank you to you guys. Your expertise is huge. To your point around being visible, being front of mind, getting on webinars like this, it was easy to pick you guys because every time I open LinkedIn, my newsfeed is not a crime scene, Judy, because I see you three more than anyone else. And it's content that I actually like and I want to comment on, right? So it made it super easy. So we've got our first questions coming through. First of all, from Donovan. If someone's posting consistently but getting no business results, what's usually going wrong?
Two things. Either you're not connected with your right market, or you are, but you're not resonating. You're not tapping into that pain. So irrelevant. And that's the invisible part.
For sure. For sure. They should probably, Donovan, it would be worth speaking to one of the guys after this call, I would say. Linda also has a question. Is LinkedIn suppression real? And if so, what can you do about it? I'm guessing this is kind of shadow banning, to the social media term, if I'm correct, guys. But is it real?
I would say, yeah. I mean, for the past couple of years, I've had to deal with some suppression, right? And I don't know if that came from virality or what, but I think since they made the changes and kind of dropped the algorithm for 2 LLMs, I've seen less suppression, to be honest. So, like, take a look at your metrics, see, like, if impressions are like kind of like open rates on email, like pure vanity means nothing. But take a look at the members reached, right? So, like, if you're seeing a higher percentage of members reached, so back in the day when I felt like I was getting suppressed, like I might have, I don't know, let's say 20,000 impressions in a week, and I was only reaching like 3,000 members, right? Like that's a bad thing. So like, see how many members are being reached, seeing like, if you're using hashtags, search on those, see if it's coming up, right? If your hashtags that you're using are not coming up, then maybe there's something there. But like just consistent and follow the basic. There are some like loose rules of the platform, so just kind of fit within there and see what you can do about content that resonates.
It's
Yeah.
interesting to add to that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, you go.
I posted something and I did it 3 ways because I was trying to run a test, if you will, if you could do that on LinkedIn. I had an article that I published in an outside journal, okay? And so I linked to it. Okay. Then I took a feature image and I just put the image and I put some, key points of the article, posted that. And then what I did is I took that image and put text in it and then just posted a quick, here's the article, link to it. Which one do you think got the best and highest engagement of those 3? Okay, and not the one I would have thought of, but it was the one with the text over the image. And I posted about a month ago. I think I should write an article about that. But I'm going to try that again and take an outside piece of content and try it 3 ways. Do the direct post to the article where it shows up in that little mini card, do an image and put more content, and then do an image with the text and just put a key, here's the key takeaway, and see if that holds true again. Because it tells me that, there's a stylistic preference. But the other thing I would say to answer Linda's question is that the 2 things not impacted by any shadow banning or the algorithm are commenting and direct messaging. Those you have control over to some degree.
I was just going to add in
Interesting.
response to the question. I think also just being conscious of who you're letting into your network, because I'm sure our connection invitations are a crime scene, to use Judy's language. So be conscious of who you're letting into that world, right? Because not that we're gated and we're exclusive, but each acceptance is a nudge to the algorithm that this is what I'm interested in. So curate a network which is somewhat relevant to whoever it is you're going after, for what purpose. Not that it's suppression, but it will give the wrong indication to the platform.
Yeah, amazing. We've got another question. I think that this is important, and this has all been angled, obviously, at a personal brand. But does personal brand now matter more than company brands in B2B?
I don't know whether. So my view is, I don't know whether it's more, as in it should be prioritized better or anything. I think what we're noticing is you will get broader reach as a personal brand with a story, with a history, with a background, with lived experience. LinkedIn favors that reach over a post on a company page, for example. I think what we're just seeing now is, with such low trust in the market, with AI having lowered the barriers to content, people are searching for something which is human and relatable and something that they can actually buy into. So showing that from a personal experience, from a leader, unveiling things that are going on in the business from a real lived experience is what we're seeing is taking kind of the pedestal over, a post from a company brand page. Now, I'm not going to say that company brand pages aren't valuable because they have a place and they are incredibly useful as we've discussed. So I think it's just about where do you distribute your time based on how much time you
Amazing.
and what the other
Great
guys do.
answer.
I mean, also there's a piece too with company branding where it's like the brand page. You want to encourage employees, so like the company is like has a positive environment. Get some social advocacy from your people too, right? So like tie into their personal brands and share some messages from the company brand, kind of like as loyalists or advocates of the company. Like I think a thing that people don't tap into enough. And I know that I've been very high for companies when I can get my social advocacy score up to like over 9. So like over 9% of the company employees are actively commenting, posting, resharing content, and I've been in a top 100 for marketing firms when I hit that level. So like it is a great tool called Disseminate if you want to kind of track what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Yeah,
I
good
would
shout out
add
for
to that.
British tech.
One thing to add to that is when you talk about personal brand, you're talking about company brands. I'll use my own experience. I have a financial advisor. Absolutely fantastic. He changed companies. I liked the brand he was with before. So what happened? Did I stay with the brand or did I go with the personal brand? The person. I went with the person because it was that relationship that we had. It wasn't so much that he worked for this, a white shoe brand. It was, the person, the human connection. So I think that company brands are important, but it does come down to the person and how you relate to that person.
And this, with the employee advocacy bit, I think is fantastic as well. And is there, Taryn, was there a way you achieved that? Was it every post went in their Slack channel and they were trained up to like it and comment?
Yeah.
How did that work?
Yeah, so I actually do briefs. So like for me, like it's my natural state to do that. So like I'll be like, hey guys, we just had a recent podcast episode drop. Here's what you can comment on. This person is a current client. This person's a prospect. Like let's show some levelness. Let's get some activity on that. Dropping like meaningful post into the Slack channel and just directing them. You're like, hey, I need some likes and loves. I make my ask very direct and get people on there. And now we're averaging about a 7% advocacy scores, a little bit down. But like we had dipped at certain points, right? So like it's just consistently driving people to be like, hey guys, need some support on this. Let's get this message out. Let's push this up. Let's promote our client. Let's reach out, let's inspire a prospect or a lead.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's all of the questions. So all that leaves me to do is say thank you so much for everyone attending. And also thank you three, because I think that was absolutely awesome. I know I learned a lot. We're going to put the recording up on YouTube. So stay tuned for that if you want to revisit anything. And I'm also sure the guys would be open, if you want to explore your personal brand and you want to use a professional to do it. These are the three people I'd speak to. So don't be shy. Use your LinkedIn DMs and reach out to them. Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much,
One more
guys.
thing to add, just behind the scenes, Tristan, thank you for driving the ship.
Yeah, well done, Tristan.
How could I forget T? I know, Tristan, thank you very much.
Live from his cell.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you all.
Guys.